Welcome everybody to Community Call in January. First one, new year. We have got some amazing stuff planned today. We're super excited to have you all here today. And let's have a look at the agenda, which is jam-packed with some awesome stuff today. So first of all, we're going to get a nice kick off the year, run through the roadmap, what's coming, what do we have planned? I mean, this is just like what's planned from now, not even talking about what's going to be landing over the course of the year. And then we have a look at parameterized queries, which is going to be a feature I'm actually super excited about. So that name even is so fresh. Like it's been going back and forth, and we're still going with parameterized queries, but we'll touch on that later on. Autocreate for actions. Like I'm the actions person. Like that's what I do on the community team, and I'm so excited about this thing. Cron Triggers, again, we're going to be bringing some really cool stuff there for people that like to schedule, and database latency checks. So we've really got a full load today. And to kick it off, we're going to actually get to bring on Tanmay with a look at the upcoming product roadmap. So Tanmay, how's it going?
Thank you, Jesse. I should take you folks over kind of what our high-level themes are for 2023. So first half of this year, we're going to be super focused on adding a bunch more databases. We're enhancing our support for different Postgres flavors. There's been recent work that we've been adding around dynamic kind of database routing that will help bring the best of flavors like Cockroach and Citus and integrate that better with how Hasura works too. And we'll be making progress on Mongo, MySQL, and Oracle with early alphas that you'll be able to start using in the first half of 2023. As usual, of course, and what we'll see in the call as well, across kind of our key capabilities on Postgres, authorization event triggers, different databases, and our GraphQL API capabilities, we'll kind of keep seeing enhancements there as well. Parameterized queries, internal name and external name, yet we decided, as Jesse said, is going to be one of those kind of major enhancements that's simultaneously on Postgres and on the GraphQL API side, and will later come to other databases as well. In the second half of the year, for which we're starting to kick off some R&D work, we're going to have a few major DX changes and improvements. One way of thinking about it is, if we think of the North Star as the console experience and the developer experience becoming more like a VS Code, think of that as like a VS Code for Hasura kind of experience, where the metadata experience and the console UI experience are kind of more closely integrated together and separated out from the way that you're thinking about production. So we're going to see a lot of interesting work there that will make both the experience of kind of development faster and the experience of kind of having different environments and management and stuff like that fundamentally better. The second piece is major improvements on our performance and scalability. Hasura is already pretty fast. It's going to get faster, and our ability to kind of scale that out, set up multi-region capabilities and stuff like that is going to increase. One tangible way for you folks to think about it is, Hasura depends on the kind of the metadata that you have. You might have, let's say, for example, you have this very large amount of metadata. It might take like 5 or 10 seconds to start up. That is going to change into something like a sub-millisecond stuff, right? And so that allows the kind of auto-scaling capabilities, the kind of like per request capabilities and stuff like that that makes possible is going to be amazing. We're going to be doing and announcing some kind of major events and launches for that part of the year as well. So watch out for that. But that's the kind of rough theme that you can expect and the direction that we're going in for the second half of the year. So we'll be adding these and you'll be seeing these pop up on GitHub as well. And we'll be launching kind of early alphas and stuff like that, so that some of you, especially our power users, can start getting access to that, giving us feedback and testing it out. But that's thematically kind of our setup for the rest of the year. And with that, I'll hand it back to you, Jesse, so that we can dive into some of these enhancements.
Very, very cool. I mean, if you thought Hasura was already fast, getting faster, I'm gonna be holding everybody to that. Like, product team, watch out, because Also, a side note, a lot of our community team and a lot of our product team have been building a lot of benchmark tooling that you'll actually be seeing come out more and more in publicly facing areas. So if you're interested in benchmark testing kinds of things, we have a lot of tooling in flight for that as well. So if you're curious, definitely reach out to one of our sales engineers or somebody else, and we can help out there. I totally forgot to mention this, but we have the swag giveaway. So I want to make sure everybody's clear on that. Best questions, who's getting engaged on chat, we're going to give away swag. So if you've got questions, write them in chat, and maybe you're going to get like an awesome coffee cup or a pair of cool socks, because it's wintertime in the Northern Hemisphere. So like sock time. Anyways, we're going to move right along to our next topic for the day, and that is parameterized queries. And for that, Dan Harvey is going to go ahead and give us the breakdown on that. You ready, Dan?
Yeah, but before Dan takes it away, I'd like to just provide some context for the community, and quickly just run through some slides and also show our roadmap a little bit, if you don't mind, Jesse. Thanks, Dan. So this is a little bit of review from the last community call we had, but after this, I'll also show a little bit of our roadmap. But parameterized queries, again, let you kind of leverage the native query language of a database and map it to the GraphQL schema. And so use cases for this that we've seen in the community, there's been a lot of interest, is stuff like full text search, and also tracking functions that return a scalar. So currently you need to create a view or a table to kind of be a placeholder for functions, and you don't always want to have to do that. And also for some use cases, you have to give DDL privileges. So the purpose of this is to kind of give a hook into the native query capabilities and unlocking a lot more use cases that we don't natively support in our auto-generated schema. And I just want to be clear that that doesn't mean if you have like an outstanding request for us natively supporting something in the GraphQL schema, this doesn't mean that we're not going to do that and we're going to point you to this feature. Like we will take that on a case-by-case basis based on what adds the most value to our product and really reduces the total cost of ownership and time to value for your projects and stuff like that. So if you have other use cases that you could see this being useful for that aren't listed here, that come to mind as Dan goes through his demo, please add it to this RFC or to the chat in the Zoom channel, or you can even reach out to me directly if you want to schedule a meeting to learn more. This is a journey. Could become a very big feature for us. And what Dan's going to show is kind of in the demo is that you don't need DDL access to do some native query capabilities. We're currently working on adding support for parameters and custom type responses without a table, which I'll kind of go into more detail in the next slide. And then we're hoping to release this. This is a roadmap, and I'm not going to discuss like precise dates, but the beta we're hoping to come out in weeks, not months. And then once we have the beta out, we're hoping to have a GA available in weeks, not months as well. And we really want to get as much feedback from users during that time about how permissions should work, about how mutations and just user feedback we've gotten so far. There's a lot of interest about kind of using these things as like having some templating between them and using them as like building blocks and stuff like that. And then for the beta release, we'll also integrate this into the UI so that you can kind of do CRUD operations and stuff like that. Currently, we're targeting Postgres, and this will be part of like the community edition. It won't be an enterprise feature. And we're hoping, once we kind of build it out, we'll be looking at other databases that this will unlock value for. So SQL Server, Snowflake, BigQuery, Advanced Permissions is another place that this might be used, so that you can kind of say like users only have permission to edit things that are like associated with their ID or something like that. So real quick, I just want like Dan's going to show some code and stuff like that. And for those of you with smaller screens or who can't read code really fast, I just want to kind of go through what you're going to see, so it all makes sense to you. You're going to see him just add metadata for the native query to the Hasura project, and in that there's going to be a type a source, which is a Postgres database, a root field name, which is what will show up in the GraphQL schema after we create this thing, and then the SQL, which is the raw SQL query. In this case, we're only returning 50 characters. And then there's a section for parameters, which we'll demo in the future. And then, as I mentioned, the return type, which right now is a table, but you'll be able to define a specific schema for this, so you don't have to create a view or a table in the future. And then he's going to show you using some of those queries. Cool. So Dan, take it away. And if there's anything you want to add, feel free.
Thanks, David. I'll just share my screen. Here we are. Right, can everyone see Hasura, the console? Perfect. So right, yeah, this is my project. This is just a Postgres. We've got one table here, which has got our data in it, which is the article table. And this content is very long. And what we're going to do is make it more succinct. We've got this article return type. So for the time being, we need to use this this is a tracked table, which is the type of the function. One of the following bits of work is that this won't be necessary. Right, so I'm going to crack open Postman, and now, so we're going to make a metadata request, and we're going to add like a parameterized query to our project. So firstly, this is the SQL that we are going to do. So we're going to select a bunch of stuff from the article table. So we've got the article table. We're going to select a bunch of stuff, but we're going to take a bunch of the content, and we're going to like choose the first 50 characters of it, and we're going to call it excerpt. This is fairly straightforward stuff, but nothing too odd. And then we ignore the parameter for the time being. That's in an iteration, and we're using this article return type table to say this is what we're going to return. This source is like our default Postgres source. We're just going to pop that in there, and GraphQL engine is happy, so I'm happy. So great. Now, if we go back to our main thing here, we've got the article with excerpt, which is the thing that we've added. Now, I'm just going to copy paste to the basic query in, because so as a start, we can just select all of the we can use this. We've selected all of the articles in the table, except we can get rid of stuff and start filtering on the response like it was anything else. So I'm going to put the date back here. And what's like kind of nice about this is that we've got sort of everything else that we'd want to do with that. So if we want to start looking up stuff by dates, like we would do as treat like the return from any other table, we can pop a date in there. Today's date, I think that's what they're under, and so that should give us 3 articles there, and we could like put in limits and anything else that you want to do with any table returning. So yeah, that's the first thing we're doing here. So the thing that was that's the thing that works. That's the thing that exists. The next step is that we'll be able to, the parameterizing part is that the next step is that we'll be able to replace parts of this SQL with parameters. So here we've added the length parameter because we hard coded 50 characters, right? But the next thing is that we want to change that for length. And so now we'll be able to pass that in the next thing is we'll be able to pass that in our query and then make that controllable. Does that make sense? But yeah, that's the thing we have. That's the thing we have now. Any questions?
Take a look at the chat.
Oh yeah.
There doesn't seem to be any specific questions on the current feature, but yeah, I mean, this is really an amazing. I mean, there's going to be just so many use cases for this, and even for a naive function like this, it's something that we can really see. Very practical use case.
That means
a lot of people super
really
excited
well or really bad.
Yeah,
doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, I just want to say, you actually heard a British man say he was happy, and that actually is accomplished by this feature. Then this is already a really impressive functionality. So, would you agree, Dan?
Oh, it's super exciting. Like it's been like super. It's already like there's so much stuff you can do it because it's just as soon as you sort of hit a wall, you're like, well, I know how to get out of here now. I've always got like a thing I can do, like nested insert, you have like an insert that does another insert and send stuff back and things like that. So there's much more you can do within a transaction as well, which I think is a really interesting area and things like that.
We have one question, and that is assuming that there's going to be built-in protections against SQL injections.
So yes, the places that in the first iteration, the only places you can put a parameter in are anywhere you could put a prepared statement number in, if you see what I mean. So we're using Postgres's. Yeah, sorry, I could probably show you what I mean. So here, when we turn it into SQL, this will become something like. Can you see this? Oh yeah, this will become something like the parameter numbers, which means that Postgres these are being sent as parameters, and Postgres takes care of SQL injection stuff. That makes sense?
Very cool. Yeah. And then the follow-up question, you can create relationships back to the rest of the data. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Anything you can do with like pulling from anything you can do from pulling from a table directly, you can do with this. It's no different as far as we're concerned. It's just, it puts it in like in a CTE and then which is then we create a common table expression for this SQL segment and then like read from it. So you can treat it as if it was a table or everything else.
Very, very cool. Thanks for giving us the demo. And we are super excited again, just pointing you all back again to the RFC on that, because that's going to be a great place to let us know your use cases, edge cases that you would want to have that functionality be able to support. That helps the product team really shape up what it should do. And yeah, personally, I'm super excited for this. So thank you so much. David, did you have any last thoughts on that or?
No, just to say like all the questions that have come up about like relationships, permissions, SQL injection are things that are on our radar and that we're considering in like the design of this thing. Yeah, and we really think this is important as we broaden our data connectivity and start adding sources like Snowflake, for example. CDWs are always adding features, and we won't be able to add a feature within our platform the same day that they come out, and the schema will just explode. So like something like Snowflake variant data types, you can query semi-structured data and stuff like that. This just unlocks all of those, like everything in the kitchen sink once you choose a data source. So we think it's really important for us as we just expand the platform the way we are this year, that we think this is a pivotal part of the platform. Thanks,
all right,
Jesse.
that allows us to move on to the next on the agenda, which is the Autocreate Actions. And Raul, you've got the demo on this one, yeah?
Yes, please.
All right, take it away.
But exciting stuff, team. I think parameterized queries would be awesome, and looking forward to use it myself. So great stuff. So with that, I'm here to introduce a new feature which our team has been working on, which is importing an action from an open API spec endpoint. Just to give you what the feature is about, it will give you the ability to create an action from an OS spec, and open API specification is the standard right now in the REST world. And if you have a valid open API spec, now you have the ability to create an action from it within seconds, and I will show you in that demo. Currently, we support 6 classes of REST endpoints. When I mean classes of endpoints, you have different variations in how Swagger endpoints are designed. Some have arrays and query parameters, some have header parameters, some have there's post, put, delete. There are different kinds of endpoints. So I will show you 4 or 5 classes of endpoint in the demo today. And going forward, we'll be adding more support of classes of REST endpoint. For example, currently the limitation is that you won't be able to upload an image using action. So those are the kind of enhancements we'll be coming up in the future. It's currently under the experimental flag. We are making some enhancements to the console, and it will be very soon out of the experimental flag and ready to use for everyone. But right now it's behind one, so you have to explicitly get that on by going to the settings page and turning it on. Why is it important? It's important because, as I mentioned, that Open API spec is a standard in the REST world, and currently it is cumbersome to import or use existing REST endpoints and bring that into Hasura. You have to do things like type generation, use Kriti to transform responses and requests. And it's in an order of minutes and even sometimes hour to really get all these endpoints in the right place. And by this, we are expecting that you'll be able to quickly augment your GraphQL schema, which to your partners, to people outside your community, with external OS-based data source. And there will be more investments on this side from a product point of view, making it easier for you to bring in OS data sources into Hasura. With that, let me show this in action. What I will do today is I will use Swagger Pet Store, and I will go through all the CRUD operations and go through the use case and see how this functionality is, and show you this functionality in action. With that, so right now this is a project which doesn't have any actions created in it or at all. And if you want to follow along, I'm using the Swagger Pet Store. You can just search this online and see the different endpoints we have. So let's start the demo by first creating a pet. So I'm going to create an action, click import from OpenAPI. Now this is the new functionality. Here you browse or paste an OpenAPI spec. So let me browse and get the Pet Store OpenAPI JSON, which is on my laptop right now. I paste in the URL there, and I search for post pet, and what you see right now is that all the type configuration, all the Kriti templating, especially on the payload side, and transform request body, all of this has been done for you automatically. And I'm ready to create that action right now. So if I go back to the API tab, I have the add pet mutation with me ready to use right now. So let me quickly create a pet for you. So we were able to create work with this external server, create a pet on the Swagger Pet Store external server. I would say within a minute, even seconds. So what I will do right now, I'll speed up the process and go through the different methods in the Pet Store and see how the different classes of endpoints can be imported into Hasura now. So we added the pet. Let's now query the pet by its ID. So I'll go to the actions page again. I'll import from OpenAPI. So now so I created a pet. I wanted to know if the pet has been created. So I'll generate an action, go back to the API tab, and then see if I have that query available. So what I will do is just try to query, and yes, so I'm able to query that pet by the name Bulldog has been is in the Pet Store right now. So we have done creation, we have done reading the data as well from the external source. Let me quickly update the status from available to something else. So I go back to the actions tab, similar workflow. Now I will select put, which is in the rest world updating mutation. And then once I go here and create action, I have the update pet mutation available to me. So let me go one here and change the status to pending. So now we have changed the status of this pet to pending, and we have this action right now of getting pet by ID, but now we have changing statuses. So we need to get pets by available status. So that's a different class of endpoint, and we support creation of those endpoints as well. So if we go to import OpenAPI feature, go with the same workflow. Now I want to get pets by status. So I generate this action, create action, and I'm ready to use it in the API tab. So there I have the pet which I created just here in the pending status. And just to make it real world worthy, I would say let's delete the pet as well and see if the deletion happened or not. So let's go back to the action page, same workflow I mentioned before. Now I'm going to delete the pet by pet ID, and I generate that action. The action is already created. Everything is filled for us in real time. And then all I have to do is do this mutation. So I have some message coming that the pet has been deleted, but my external server doesn't have the right JSON response configured. That's why I'm getting null. So I want to see if this really worked or not. So let me use the get pet by ID again and see if the pet is available or not. So it gives an error. That means the pet is not there. Just to see if the query is working properly, I'll use a legitimate ID, and you see that the ID is coming back. So what I did here, I created 1, 2, 3, 5 classes of actions, did a complete CRUD operation within, I would say, 2-3 minutes. And currently, this order of activity on the Hasura platform for a beginner to intermediate user would take around 40 minutes to 1 hour. And Jesse is on the call. He could attest to that claim which I'm making. So hopefully this is of use to you. We are going to enhance this further. It's going to come out of experimental flag very soon. There's going to be a public RFC as well on other features we are building on this area, and would love to get your thoughts. And if you have any open API JSON for me to test out or for yourself to test out as well, please be our guest and reach out to us if any feedback. Thank you. So
there was one question regarding about, will there be the ability to select multiple and batch import?
Right. So we want to explore that further, that do you really have a need for it? So it's great that we have that question on the community. We are actively thinking about it. And yes, some kind of bulk upload or enabling. So I have a follow-up question. So would you be interested to upload few endpoints, or are you interested to just bring an entire API such as a Spotify API or a Twilio API into Hasura? That would help us make the decision. But to answer your question in a short way, yes, we are thinking about bulk uploads and bringing REST APIs in a more smoother manner. Entire API like joining a graph. Okay, thank you for that feedback. So yes, something to expect in around second half of the year as we are building on this functionality. Awesome. Any other questions? Please let know. So the next one is me as well, Jesse. So do you want me to
go for it?
Go again?
Yep.
All right. So that was action. What happens when the underlying API changes? Yes. So right now you will have to treat that as a separate activity. So if underlying API changes, you have to come and make the changes to your action for it to be reflected in the GraphQL schema. Some of the discovery we are doing right now is that can we really do a graceful job in making sure that your upstream changes are respected in Hasura. But that's on the roadmap, something we are considering. Currently, you'll have to manually change the action if something changes to your API. While I'm bringing up the next topic, Ben Stewart, it would be great to know how important this aspect would be for you. Like, do you have many upstream changes? If you were to bring in REST APIs into Hasura, that would be very useful to know. Okay, so Ben, you're already, so please use it and let me know or let the community know how much time you were able to actually save. So with that, let me share my screen again. Just a minute, please. The next topic is Cron Triggers. So if you have not used Cron Triggers, they're a very cool functionality on the platform. And why we are bringing this up in this community call is because we revamped the Cron Trigger form on the console. And I'll show you the before and after and some new functionality we have added to it. But just to give a refresher to folks, if you're new to Hasura or you have not used Cron Triggers, what are Cron Triggers used for? They invoke webhooks based on a cron, and think of it as extending your operating system cron type of facilities to more on the API level. Run periodic events on a cron schedule. So use cases such as daily reports, automated weekly newsletters, and recurring reminders are apt use cases for using cron triggers with Hasura GraphQL engine. Why is it important? It's important because it enables you to build an event-based cron system using just your database without need for custom code or using any other tool. If you have Hasura and a Postgres database, for example, you are good to execute this pattern and maybe even build a scheduling calendar app, things like that, using Cron Trigger functionality. What's new? We added REST connector transforms on the UI that enables you to change the payload, change the method based on the webhook URL of your Cron Trigger, enhanced UX, and also ability to delete from console. Yes, they should have been always there, but now it is there if you were wondering why you can't delete it on the console. So overall, I would say these functionalities such as REST connected transforms and ability to delete were there in the metadata level or from the API side. Now they are supported on the console side as well. So I'll quickly show you the changes and how you can use these changes. With that, let me. So this is the Cron Trigger form in 2.16. So in 2.16, you have name, webhook, cron schedule, a form to do payload, and then advanced settings for headers and retry configuration. So this is what you are used to using. This is the current form for configuring and working with cron triggers. And if we look at the metadata API, we support request transform and response transform. This is a create cron trigger API reference page. And we have these request and response transforms currently available via metadata API. So what we did in 2.17, and this is the 2.17 version, we have revamped the form. So it adheres to the design pattern across the platform, such as event triggers and actions. B, we have changed the layout of the form in a way that you could quickly put comments and so brought the comment section up. And then more importantly, we have the request payload transform section now on the form itself. So you don't need to do this via the metadata API. And if I look at the advanced settings as well, this has been refactored just to make it easier for you to use Cron Trigger functionality. And so given it's a Cron Trigger, I didn't want to do a live demo, so I created some events behind the scene to show you how to leverage this new functionality. So if I look at a very simple use case of changing the request method. So right now, my webhook URL, which is expecting the Cron Trigger, honors a post method. So I created some events and processed them. Some went through, some did not. The ones which went through, I did not do any transformation of the method. It was post as it was configured. But the others which got failed, let's see why it got failed. It got a 405 status. If I look at the response, the reason is the method not allowed. And then method not allowed is because I was modifying the method using the new addition to the console. It was a put method here. So this is a new functionality, able to even customize your cron triggers further. If I were to show you the metadata behind, so by doing this form configuration changes, you're able to change the metadata. And we got that 405 error for that particular trigger because, as you can see, that the method was changed to a different one in the metadata because of the console configuration. So hopefully this was that's what we have, I think, for actions and Cron Trigger for this community call. Looking forward to your feedback and your questions and more enhancement requests as we make this platform even better. Thank you. And over to, let me check questions as I hand it over.
There was one question, Rahul, and that was around if there was an ability to configure for misfires. I think we have retry logic built into the settings for crons. Yeah.
Yes, we have. If we go to advanced settings page, we can do number of retries. We can retry intervals. We can configure and also timeouts in second. If these don't work for you, please let us know. If there's any other idea you have, we can consider that as well.
Very cool. All right. If there's any more questions, let us know in chat and we're happy to answer them there. Or again, obviously throughout the rest of the community places where you can reach out to us. That brings us to our last demo for the evening, and that is on database latency. And so, Amit, are you ready to give us a talk about checking for latency?
Yep, Jesse, I'm ready. Perfect. Awesome. All right. So in the opening remarks, Tanmay talked about one of the focus area for Hasura for this year would be improving the latency and the performance in our applications and to help developers bring down the latencies. As a developer, of course, I want to write applications which are highly performant, scalable with less latency in my applications. And there can be multiple factors that contribute to a typical latency. What we have seen is the biggest factor that contributes to latency is the inter-region hops that data has to make. And what really sometimes happens is you have a Hasura cloud, operating in one specific region in database residing in some other region, which can easily add to, kind of up to 300 milliseconds of latency just in the data hops. All right, so what we are doing as part of this feature, which has the potential to reduce your latency by up to 10x, is in the data manager, when you go and create your database connection strings, you see a new button out there, which is a check database latency. And what really happens is when you click on this button, it actually does a ping and gives you the latency for each of your data connections. The way it works is, if the latency is beyond a threshold, it gives you a label out there that, okay, the latency is too high. And it also gives you a recommended action, what you can do. The recommended action can be seen here. What it means is, it tells you that, okay, you can actually take your Hasura cloud project and move it into a cloud region where your database sits. So in that case, you are actually removing a bunch of those data hops between your Hasura cloud and your database. So this is how you may end up, changing your region within Hasura. I'm going to show a recording of the demo here. The demo gods were not happy with me this morning, so I'm going to end up, showing a little recording here. So let me see.
Team, and I'll be demoing.
Can you hear the audio before I go for cool? Awesome.
Yes.
The feature. Before I go into that, I just want to quickly show that I have two data sources connected here, both of them Postgres, where one is connected using a connection string and the other one is through a database, through an envor. So now users, when they land on the manage database page, they'll see a check DB latency button, which when they click, latency for each of their connected data sources will be calculated. So if I go ahead and calculate that, I'm just waiting for the results. So as you can see, like the latency is less than 200.
So just want to pause here for a quick second here. So right now, the threshold that we maintain here is 200 millisecond. Anything that is less than 200 millisecond latency, that's acceptable the way we see it. But of course, you can still go ahead and you can update your project region. But if the latency is more than 200 millisecond, then the label changes to elevated latency. So immediately it shows in your face that, okay, the latency is too high and you may want to take some recommended action out there.
Milliseconds, we see that, okay, this is acceptable. It's not the best, but it's still acceptable. If this was before, greater than 200 milliseconds, then we would show that, downgraded performance in these builds. when I hover on it, you can see the actual latency number. And then we show them a message saying that if your Hasura is hosted in the same region as your database, then it'll be better for performance. And then we also show a button where the users can recheck their latency, and a button which will navigate them to their Hasura Cloud change region page, where they can, if they're not upgraded, they can upgrade the project and then change the region to change the project region to one that makes more sense.
All right, so that's a quick demo how this works end to end. You go in, you check your database latency. If the latency is too high, it gives you recommended action. You can go and change the project region to put your database and the Hasura Cloud in the same region to reduce the latency. And the potential out here is you can easily reduce your latency from up to 300 millisecond to under 30 millisecond, which is a 10x improvement right there. So this is one feature that will help our developer friends to actually make their applications more scalable, performant, and with the less latency. So that's a little demo I have here.
Yeah, thank you so much for that demo. I've worked with many SaaS tools out there because I'm a DevRel, and that's what we do is we abuse free tiers across the internet. But like being able to change regions for a project is insane because I'm based in Germany, and like there's so many times where it's kind of like now I need to like make this demo and not go crazy slow because I've got something that's running in a region that's nowhere near where I'm actually trying to access it. So I think that's a really understated feature because it's very powerful. So thank you so much.
Yep,
yeah, that's going to bring us to our community updates. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And yeah, so community updates. First of all, we want to have a special shout out to our swag winners for today. So let me go ahead and run that. Thank you to the great questions. Didn't get listed on the slide, but we have JC Roloffs and Ben Stewart. So thank you for your questions. Thank you to everybody for your questions today, because having interactive community makes these calls really powerful. The feedback has been really great and really helps us be able to actually real time, like synthesize solutions to the things that we're trying to build to help us all build better software. So thank you so much for that. Moving on, we have a upcoming webinar soon with a community champion. We're going to be looking at scaling real-time applications with Lineup Ninja's migration from Firebase to Hasura. It's going to be a great interview style webinar. A lot of good architectural patterns in there, looking at embracing real-time data inside of Hasura and how that helped them scale their product. And then moving on to our next community call, which is going to be February 23rd. We'll definitely look forward to seeing you then. Last but not least, I believe that's the last slide, is we have our Discord where you can find, it's actually not our last slide, but Discord is where we have like everything happening. We're putting a ton of effort. We've revamped the Discord. We're really putting a lot of effort into making sure that is the place for you to be able to get your questions and answers. And now it even includes ChatGPT. We have a really cool alpha feature in there that like actually works really well, where you can ask a question, it'll synthesize a solution for you. And we're really excited about it. We're actually going to do a preview of it next call in February, where we're going to kind of go through more in depth how that works. It's built with Hasura. If you haven't heard of ChatGPT, don't Google it because you're going to lose like the rest of your workday. But it's a really cool feature and we're excited about it. So do give it a try and we'll let you know next month how that all goes. And yeah, if you have any other feedback, generally speaking, about this call, if I drop too many British jokes, then by any means, let me know. And I'm happy to listen to your feedback. These are the places to let us know. That being said, we are done just a couple minutes early. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to drop them here. Otherwise, with that being said, thank you again for showing up. And to all of our presenters, it was a great bit of feedback. And we will see you all next month. Bye.